This is episode 264 of the Reel Me In: A Movie Podcast. On this week's episode, Chase and Joel will take a look at the newest family film that is not animated, The Kid Who Would Be King, and Joel's going to have an extra review, as well as the movie news and movie trailers, all that and more on today's Reel Me In. What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast of the week. I am Chase Lee, one of your co-hosts here for Reel Me In. And, this is episode 264, as the intro stated, and we are going to be talking about The Kid Who Would Be King, as well as a bunch of trailers and news and a bunch of stuff that has dropped this past week. If you're new to the show, what we typically do is we'll go over some movie trailers and then movie news, and then review the movies that are in said title, and then Joel will have his mini review of something, and then we'll wrap up the show. If you're a returning listener, welcome back, and if you didn't know what this was, if you are new, it is a movie podcast, and if you are a movie fan, or if you're someone that's trying to get into a film commentary community, I think you found the right one. I think Joel and I are pretty inviting for the most part. I know Joel scares a lot of people off, but I'm here to tell you that he's a lot nicer than you think. So he is no curmudgeon like Mark is, but he's getting there. I feel like when Joel gets older, he and Mark will be pretty much the same, and they will just be curmudgeons reviewing movies on their deathbed. It'll be fantastic to witness. So, before I flip it over to Joel, if you guys could spread this podcast around and let people know about it, your friends, family, whatever, we really appreciate it. And make sure you like and comment, all that stuff. I like when you guys are interactive. Speaking of the Jolsif over there, Joel, what's been going on over there? We haven't seen each other in a whole week, haven't talked to each other. It's the end of January, so 1 month has already gone by in the new year, so we're already super old now because time's just going too fast. So what's been going on in your life over there?
Oh, just kind of working. Got up early on Tuesday to watch the Academy Award nominations, which we'll get to those later on in the show a little bit. Just kind of working. My car was in the shop for a couple days. That was fun. It wasn't anything serious. My spark plugs were kind of expired almost, I guess. They just kind of weren't working anymore. So I got those replaced. And otherwise, just kind of, and you said that I'm not a curmudgeon. I think you should all get off my lawn. I'm just kidding.
That's true. I've seen Joel sit in a rocking chair on his porch, and he doesn't even have a porch. That's what's weird. He's sitting on his porch with a tank top on. He's drinking a Pabst Blue Ribbon at 10 in the morning. He's got his stern look on his face. It's just it's crazy, guys, how much he loves Clint Eastwood. So.
Oh boy. It's just kind of been an uneventful week for me. So.
Yeah, same here. Tuesday was the Oscar nominations, like you said, so that's always an exciting time. And of course, I'm not going to really comment on the nominations. I'm going to let Joel take over that whole entire section because Terrence and I did that on Tuesday. If you guys want to know my thoughts and Terrence's thoughts, that is on the podcast feed. Just find it. It is on there. And then I also did my first mini review for you guys because I told you guys I'm going to review every single thing that I get coming my way. But if it's on the actual podcast episode, I'm going to wait until the actual episode. But if I do anything beyond that during the week, I will share it with you guys. So my first one was Stan and Ollie, the one about Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy, the comedy duo from the late 20s to mid-50s. And that was a delightful little movie. I like that one quite a bit. So
I can't wait to catch up with that one. I missed it in theaters, and I'm just waiting until it comes home. But I can't wait.
Well, it kind of reminded me of what you and I were talking about with The Old Man and the Gun, where you just walk out of that movie going, "That was delightful. I like that."
Yeah.
It's really harmless. Is it shown through a brief window of time in their history? Sure, and I wish there was a little bit more, but I think for what we were given, I liked it. So. Yeah, and then, of course, finally, after months and months, I know Joel's going to be finally happy that I can stop talking about it now. But my girlfriend and I finally finished Game of Thrones, so we are ready for April, and I still don't know half of the characters' names, but that's okay. We are good to go. At least I know the overall like story and the premise, so I'm good. Some characters can kind of float in and out of scenes that like I don't even remember that person. But it's just it's absolutely funny that I have to turn to her almost every 10 seconds and be like, who was that again? She's like, that was from season 3, episode 3, minute mark 22 minutes. I'm like, I don't even remember that. So so we finally finished that, and just kind of going down our TV list throughout the week, and got a couple screenings coming up this week that should be pretty fun. I got Miss Bala for you guys, which is actually our review for next week, and then Thursday is the screening of Alita Battle Angel, so that should be
really?
pretty fun. That is what's going on in my life. And so, Joel, every single week there are trailers that drop, and I feel like we should discuss them because all these are family-friendly adventures, and I feel like that would be appropriate since we're going to be talking about the kid who would be king. So, starting off our family-friendly trailers, we have Nancy Drew and the Hidden Staircase. Now, I was never like a Nancy Drew, fan growing up. Like, I was aware of the books. I was aware of the media that involved that character. I just really never got into it, so it's nothing against the movie or the character. I never got into it. But this one stars Sophia Lillis as the title character, and she's exploded from It Chapter 1, and of course Chapter 2 she's got coming out this year, and she was in Sharp Objects last year playing the younger Amy Adams, which, by the way, that's literally the perfect casting because they look similar.
Now she's playing the younger version of the character being played by Jessica Chastain in It, right?
Right. So she's basically going to play the younger version of every redhead in Hollywood. But no, seriously,
Bryce Dallas Howard, she's coming for you.
Seriously, I mean, if you can kind of squint your eyes a little bit, she kind of looks like her, but she looks more like Amy Adams, so it was perfect casting. But this one tells the story of Nancy Drew, and they go into a house, and there's something kind of eerie with the house. There's a mystery behind it. There's some family history that they're going to kind of dive into, and there's something in the staircase, and of course she's interacting with her friends and stuff. It looks charming. It's not anything that appeals to me, but I think with the addition of a Sophia Lillis, I think you have the opportunity to have a really good actress, an up-and-coming actress, take on kind of a smaller franchise like this, and I think that's kind of perfect, because in the trailer, she is determined, she is smart, she is lovable, she is snarky. Like, she's just a really well-rounded character, and she kind of brings a bit of an edge to her, and I really appreciate that. So, a trailer that I'm not, like, jumping up and down going, hey, Joel, I can't wait to see this in March, but if you're asking me, like, how it was as a trailer, it's good. The target audience is there, and I'm sure this trailer played in front of the kid who would be king, probably, since that's kind of like its target demographic. I wouldn't know because I saw it at an advanced screening, so I have no idea how that played out. Okay, so the next trailer. Now, these are all family-friendly. I just want to keep that in mind. All family-friendly, PG or below. So just get ready for it. The next one is The Beach Bum, and this one is the restricted Red Band trailer. I'm just kidding. Nancy Drew was literally the only family-friendly one, and the rest are going to be like
I thought that you were building up to the Beach Bum.
Okay, so The Beach Bum. First of all, the poster dropped, and it looks like a glorious acid trip, which is perfect because that's kind of what McConaughey's character in the movie is. And so I really love the kind of like just vibrant poster that they put out. Okay, so if you guys don't know what The Beach Bum is, McConaughey plays a stoner named Moondog, and he kind of just lives his life. He parties, he smokes, he drinks. He's also a writer, and so he We get a better expansion on the story, like he's trying to write the next best thing, and we kind of just see him kind of float around life. I love the cast. We have Isla Fisher, we have Snoop Dogg, we have Martin Lawrence, we have Zac Efron, Jonah Hill. This is a better assortment of cast people than definitely Spring Breakers, so I'll give Harmony Korine that. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this trailer is because Joel and I, before he went on his streak of not watching trailers, the first trailer dropped for that movie, and it was more of like a tonal trailer to show us like what the movie is shot like and the kind of overall feeling of it. This was like full on. We get to know the character, we get to know a little bit of the story, and we get to see some interactions between him and the supporting cast. And you know what? As someone that did not like Spring Breakers, and that was the first movie to kick off my my critic hobby career, if you will, because that was my first ever press screening, I gotta tell you, the Beach Bum trailer is great. I absolutely loved it. It was one of those things to where, going into it, I'm like, okay, it's Harmony Korine. I didn't care for Spring Breakers. But this one, I think McConaughey is like the selling ticket. It's almost like if you took James Franco's character from Spring Breakers and focused a movie around that person. But for some weird reason, McConaughey can sell this kind of aloof, drunk, high person, but also have an extreme amount of heart to him, oddly enough, even though he's kind of crass and very sexually explicit around people. It's crazy to know that, like, everything he's doing is, something you would never do in real life, kind of like out in the open, but for some weird reason he can kind of sell it. And I don't know, I like the whole vibe of the trailer. It was kind of funny. There was a scene where he's talking to Martin Lawrence, and they're both doing cocaine, and Martin's like, hold on, I gotta give cocaine to my parrot, and he just turns and gives the parrot cocaine. I'm like, this movie is ridiculous, but you know what, I am along for the ride. So please give me. So definitely a trailer to a movie I'm looking forward to, given the fact that I did not like the previous work from him. The next one,
I'm excited for it. I'll get into something later, but I'm excited for this one. I haven't watched the trailer or anything yet, but
right.
Obviously, but I'm excited for one thing particularly, and that is for potentially the first good movie that Martin Lawrence has starred in 16 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And that was
for him.
Bad Boys. That was Bad Boys 2, which I think is amazing. Huge fan of Bad Boys 2. Full disclosure. Yeah, because otherwise it's the Big Mama sequels and Wild Hogs.
Right, and it's like that's not the movies we want to remember him for.
Right.
So he looks like just like a drunk sailor or like a drunk captain you would see like on a cruise ship or something. It's kind of funny the way he's dressed up, but I highly enjoyed his little cocaine bit at the end. Okay, so this next trailer I did not want to talk about because it looks awful. The humor does not stick. I can't believe they got Jim Gaffigan, Alec Baldwin, Salma Hayek, Joe Manganiello. I cannot believe they got all these people to be in this movie. The only reason I'm doing this trailer is not for you lovely listeners, because I love you guys to pieces. It's actually for the love of my life, Joel Copling. Because Joel has stated on the interwebs, and he has just said it out in the open, that he loves grown-ups too. So I figure anything that Fred Wolf is involved in, I'm assuming Joel's going to get excited for. So I had to talk about this.
But okay.
Right. I had to talk about it because it is directed by him, it is co-written by him, and it's not from a Happy Madison production. That is what's strange about it, because he's worked with Adam Sandler on I don't even know how many movies at this point. But this one is called Drunk Parents, and this one focuses on Alec Baldwin and Salma Hayek. They are a married couple, and I'm going to go ahead and just read the synopsis for you guys. Two drunk parents attempt to hide their ever-increasing financial difficulties from their daughter and social circle through elaborate neighborhood schemes. What is this? It is a trailer that
Wait, read that. Read that one more time. Sorry, I read that one more time. I'm trying to take in every word.
Okay. Two drunk parents. That's how it starts out. Two drunk parents. Which, to be honest with you, I have no idea why them being drunk has anything to do with the movie, the poster, or the title, or even the synopsis. Because they drink like maybe a glass of wine in the trailer, and I'm like, okay, all right. Two drunk parents attempt to hide their ever-increasing financial difficulties from their daughter and social circle through elaborate neighborhood schemes.
So sort of like Blockers, except with a different motive.
With drunk parents, apparently.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So right now, with 80 ratings, it has a 4.8 out of 10. And most of the user reviews are 1 star or below, and it pretty much shows. The trailer is awful. It reminds me, like, I know that like Joel likes the stupid humor, and I do too. But there's just something about this that turned me off to it. It was not funny. Everyone was trying too hard, and it was so surreal to see a movie that plays out like a Happy Madison production, but it isn't a Happy Madison production. I felt like my soul left my body and I was in a different universe because it plays out exactly what Adam Sandler would probably produce. But good Lord, does this trailer suck. It's not, I don't think it's funny at all. Maybe this will be one of those surprise hits that Joel just absolutely loves and he thinks I'm crazy. But I did not think of anything of it. And the fact that it's called Drunk Parents kind of annoys me because they weren't really drunk in the trailer, so unless I missed it. So a little perturbed about that. So, yeah, Joel, that was for you. That was totally for you. I don't think any of our listeners would have cared about this. All right. These next two, one of which I really like and one of which I really, really hate. And I'm a little kind of angry at this one. But I'll say that one for last. The one I actually like is the one from Joel's really good with the pronunciations. Director of Mommy.
Xavier Dolan.
Yes. So his next film, his follow-up, after the critically acclaimed Mommy, which I really, really, really loved, is The Death and Life of John F. Donovan. Now, this one tells the story of an American TV star, and it focuses a decade after his death. And then there's a young actor who kind of tells the world that him and this other actor, this older actor, have been pen pals their entire lives and have been writing letters to each other. And John F. Donovan is played by Kit Harington, speaking of Game of Thrones. And then the younger boy that is kind of like his pen pal is played by Jacob Tremblay. So, yeah, this is a really well stacked cast. We have Natalie Portman playing the younger version of Tremblay's mother. Then you have Susan Sarandon, who's playing an older version. You have Tandy Newton. You have Sarah Gadon. You have Michael Gambon, Kathy Bates. This is such a crazy amount of people to be in this movie. And so the overall trailer, I really like. I've heard mixed things from it since it premiered at TIFF last year. And right now, as far as I know, it does not have a U.S. release date. Because the only thing that it lists is it comes out in Italy March 7th, and it comes out in France March 13th. And so I don't know if it's going to ever reach here, but if it does, I do like the trailer. It didn't really blow me away, but I feel like there was enough there and a lot of strong performances just from the clips that I saw that looks like it could set itself up to be a really good time. So it looks like a really heavy movie, just like Mommy, in terms of thematics and just emotion. And so prepare to bring your tissues, probably. But yeah, this movie kind of has like a mixed approach to it. I mean, if you want to look at Metascore from all these critics that saw it, we have a 42, 33, 70, 30, 30, 25, 20. So actually it looks like it's more negative, but from the ratings on IMDb, it looks like it's mixed, and so I don't know. This could be one of those mixed movies, but I enjoy the trailer as a trailer and just from story interest. Okay.
Just to kind of prove that it's kind of all over the place in terms of the critical reception, I've only heard of from two people I know about the movie, who saw it, just somewhere, and one of those people loved it. One of those people didn't like it at all. So it's just literally the only stuff I've heard is right down the middle.
Right.
So just funny that happens. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's just Joel and I'm sure we'll see it at some point, but right now it doesn't even have a U.S. release date. So and that actually is okay with me because the trailer was in French with some of the titles and stuff. So I was like, oh, okay. So this is more of like a trailer for France. Totally down for that. Okay. This next trailer. When Joel and I talked about the prospect of Zac Efron taking on Ted Bundy, I'm totally okay with that. I love when, actors who have grown up from an innocent youth could just continue to do different things and really kind of push the envelope as actors or actresses. And Zac Efron, he's not new to this. Like, he does his raunchy comedies. He's done some kind of smaller dramas. Like, he's a really good actor when he's given the right stuff. And I enjoyed looking forward to him playing Ted Bundy. I was hoping that it would take it in a more kind of psychological route, really get inside the mind of the psychopath, and have him really do a career-defining performance. The problem is this trailer sucks, and I absolutely hate the way it uses the specific song choice. It makes it seem like a grungy, dark comedy rather than like a serious drama. Like, this is the first time we've ever seen a story about Ted Bundy portraying like him and his wife and his kid. Because usually it's about the grisly stuff he did, rightfully so. But we're going to get to see family life. We're going to get to see the grisly stuff. We're going to get to see the full gamut of this man. But this trailer is awful. I don't know who approved this song choice. I don't know who approved the slap-on graphics in your face. But the tone in this trailer is so off that it makes me turned off on the movie. And I don't like the title. It's way too long. Extremely wicked, shockingly evil and vile. Way too long of a title for a movie. And I realize you're not going to just call it Bundy. I totally get that. But this is one of those things to where you could easily shorten it or change it to something else.
Or maybe just like lop off extremely wicked or whatever.
Yeah, just
say shockingly evil and vile. That's a fun title.
Yeah, I was fixing to say like that has more of a punch to it than adding another phrase or two before it. Yeah. So I don't like the title. It's too long, and the trailer. In terms of a trailer, it is terrible. Am I still looking forward to the movie? Yes, I want to see Zac Efron kind of go to those dark places as an actor, but it just I'm telling you, I kind of want Joel to break his code and watch it because I have a feeling that he would absolutely hate the tone in this trailer, because when you hear about this movie, you're like, oh, this is going to be like a dark drama. Like, this is what we're getting. It's going to be about a murderous psychopath. But no, we get something that plays out like Shaun of the Dead. And we're like, why? Why does it have this tonal inconsistency with your subject matter and how the trailer's presented? So whoever marketed this movie is just terrible. And hopefully we can hear some good things coming out of Sundance because it's going to play there. But for right now, in terms of marketing's sake, it is awful. So that is it for the trailers, guys. My favorite one is... I probably would go with The Beach Bum. Then I would go Death and Life of John F. Donovan. Then Nancy Drew. Then Drunk Parents, because at least it knows what it wants to be. And then the very long Ted Bundy movie that I will not want to talk about again. So, Joel, besides The Beach Bum, Is there any other trailers that I talked about that kind of pique your interest?
Well, obviously the Nancy Drew movie. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
absolutely. Yeah.
I would say that just on the basis of how you described it, I'm certainly interested in seeing Extremely Shocking, whatever it's called. Uh, you're so right. I have no idea what it's called anymore because I can't
Right.
remember
It's too long.
the order of the words. Extremely wicked, shockingly evil, and vile. There we go. I'm interested in that. I'm not interested in watching the trailer. I'll keep my streak going. But
Can you
yeah,
promise me after you watch the movie, go watch the trailer for it? Please.
I will. I will do that.
Please.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to that. Just watching trailers before movies.
Right.
So real quick though about the beach bum. So
Yes.
you know that meme that's going around of there's two girls and a guy. The guy is looking at a new girl. The old girl is kind of having the surprised face or whatever, where he's looking at the new girl's butt or whatever and has that. It's I don't know how to describe memes. That's kind of the point of memes is to look at them. But do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so. I'm not really like up to date with meme culture as some people, but I know Joel is way
this
more
one's-
knowledgeable.
Well, this is like 2 years old or something. I think it's been. I mean, I should say it's been going on for a couple of years. Anyway, the setup is basically there's a couple that are walking in one direction. A girl's walking in the opposite direction.
Oh,
towards the
that
camera.
one. Yeah.
Okay, so you are the guy, right? The Beach Bum trailer is the girl walking in the opposite toward the camera, and your dislike for Spring Breakers is the old girl who's shocked by you, and is looking at you with disgust. So that's just what I think because you have been so, after that movie, kind of been so anti-Harmony Korine. And it's just it's a betrayal, man. It's a betrayal. You have to think that the trailer is awful.
No,
you
no,
must
because it's not.
to keep the the world the kind of the core of the earth spinning. That's what you have to do.
Well, I guess
no,
the
I'm
Earth
just
is
kidding.
going to explode. Sorry.
The core too, and it's about you liking the Beach Bum trailer. Okay, so anyway, that's the one that I'm definitely most excited for is the Beach Bum. But in terms of just interested, I'm definitely interested in the Ted Bundy movie. I think, I'm fascinated by that whole story, and so to see a movie's kind of be about him trying to just in some way trying to show that he was kind of a regular person in society to some degree when he wasn't killing people is certainly interesting. It's certainly an interesting tack to take. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I like Zac Efron. He was very nearly 16 for Neighbors 2. It was I think he fell off somewhere near the end, but he was near that because he's really good when he wants to be, and I'm like he's in the Beach Bum. I'm excited to see that from him, and he also was in this movie that I thought kind of got a bad rap from a few years ago, and he was really good in it. We Are Your Friends, the EDM movie, where he plays an EDM musician. And I thought he was good. So he's good. It's going to be interesting to see him in that mode. Like you said, the darker turn. So we shall see. All right, guys. So there wasn't very much news that dropped this week. Let's just say that. Before we get into this, we're not going to be talking about the Bryan Singer stuff. We're not doing that anymore. We're not a tabloid magazine, so I don't know how he keeps getting work or why he's staying on Red Sonja, but we're not here to talk about that today. We are here to talk about something that I'm wondering, because I haven't actually talked to Chase about this. I don't know what his feelings are in terms of this particular franchise spinoff, but guys, there's a Fast and the Furious spinoff coming. I don't know if this is a series or what. It's not very it's not very clear whether or not these three writers are doing the same movie, or if they're going to be like a spin-off series and all three of them are, each of them is writing one movie. I'm not entirely sure what is going on, but there's an all-female Fast and Furious franchise on the way, and to some degree, and Vin Diesel is going to be producing it with his partner Samantha Vincent. And they've gotten three writers together, either to do one movie or, like I said, I don't know if it's maybe three movies or just maybe they'll team up in some way for all three, like two at a time or whatever. I don't know. But Nicole Perlman of Guardians of the Galaxy, she co-wrote the first one. She's also did work on Captain Marvel. And Lindsay Beer, who did the Silver Sable movie that's coming out, and also Geneva Robertson Dworet, who recently wrote Tomb Raider and also worked on Captain Marvel with Perlman. So nice selection of writers. We haven't seen a lot of their work yet, but clearly they're kind of making waves based on what they've done for various studios, and people are impressed by that. So that's pretty cool that they're doing this, and I think that it's a good idea to kind of do this because there's a really weird attitude this series seems to have about women, I think. They're either objects or they're causes for drama for the male characters, which that's pretty much all they exist for in my mind. And I think that that's going to be interesting to see them kind of course correct that. Clearly, getting some female voices in there, that's going to happen. And I think that that's a pretty cool idea. I'm not a fan of the Fast and the Furious franchise. I made that clear. Chase has mocked me endlessly and rather rudely. I'm just kidding about that. I think the only good movie is Furious 7, but still, if they can do this and kind of course correct that whole thing and come up with a good product, I'm fine with that. And I'm excited about a female-led action franchise coming out. That's pretty cool, especially behind the camera. And I'm assuming they're also going to be going for female directors. They haven't really announced that, but I can't imagine that's not in the plans. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Chase, we haven't talked about this, but are you a fan of this whole concept?
Okay, so here's the deal. Anything that has to do with Fast and Furious, whether it be television show, movies, spin-offs, it is absolute 100% Teflon for me. I could care less what they do because I will watch it regardless. This sounds great. And we didn't really talk about it in our anticipated episode, but I'm looking forward to that Hobbs and Shaw movie coming out this year too. So yeah, any spinoff with this ridiculous franchise, I'm all down for. And this is taking a different approach, and I'm always down for making it more diverse. And so bring it on. And I will still continue. If people think because you're excited for it, I'm gonna let up on you. No, I'm still gonna mock you. We're gonna be reviewing Fast 9. We're gonna be reviewing Fast 10, and we're gonna be serious about it. And I'm gonna have to get on to Joel for disliking it and just being angry the entire time he's reviewing it. But we're gonna review those, so get ready for that. And what was it, like 2020 and 2022? So exciting stuff. But yeah, I'm excited for this.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll just have to resign myself to the fact that more mockery is coming.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, do that. All right, that's really the only bit of news that's not casting related, because I always put casting together. So now we're going into the casting corner. And there's really only three things that came out. Like I said, not much news this week, guys. A lot of trailers because of Sundance, but not... And some of those will be, I'm sure that Chase will be covering next week. But yeah, there's not much news. The first bit of casting news is certainly the biggest bit of casting news. So I don't know why this is still in production, considering its star is mired in controversy and all of that. But there seems to be sort of a pick and choose when it comes to some of these controversies, like destroying careers. Anyway, Jared Leto is going to be in that Morbius movie from Sony. It's based on a Spider-Man villain, and they've got another person going to be in this. So I don't know who he's playing. I don't think it's been actually like announced yet. But um, anyway, Matt Smith, who was the Doctor, I think 3 Doctors ago from Doctor Who. I think because he was before Peter Capaldi, who was before the current one. I forgot her name. I don't follow Doctor Who. Anyway, he was 3 Doctors ago, and he's kind of taken on some interesting roles since then. You know, he's on Jessica Jones, I know, and he's, at least I think that's him. Or is that David Tennant? I can't remember. Uh, he's taken on some interesting roles. He was in Ryan Gosling's movie Lost River. Had a really weird role in that. He's done some interesting stuff. So this is certainly the biggest in terms. Oh, he's on The Crown. That's what it is. The Crown. I knew it was some sort of Netflix show. Yeah, so interesting actor, certainly very intense, and I'm interested to see what he can bring to that. But, you know, maybe soon kind of recast the main role if you don't want to completely drown your movie in controversy even more so. You know, I'm excited for the people who are behind it, particularly the producers, even though they've written some pretty crappy screenplays. Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless co-created the Netflix series Lost in Space, which I watched most of. I haven't finished that first season, but really striking work. And they did that, and of course Avi Arad's behind it. So I don't know. I mean, you know, vaguely interested at least. Terminator Genesis is what Matt Smith also did. He had a bit role in that.
Joel, you should not speak of that movie's name again.
Terminator Genitals? He was in Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, apparently. I don't remember that because that movie left my memory as soon as I saw it. Anyway, that's the first bit, you know, whatever. The next bit is really interesting. So there's apparently going to be a Tolkien movie coming out. And of course, what I mean by that is that we're taking on the figure J.R.R. Tolkien, writer of the Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit, Silmarillion. And Nicholas Hoult is playing him during the World War I era, as he kind of... It's a biographical drama, but it's apparently also romantic. And so he's in there, and Lily Collins is in there. It's going to speak to his kind of formative years before he writes the famed trilogy, and it's also about the experiences that inspire that. So that's really interesting. It sort of has, to me at least, kind of a Shadowlandsy vibe. It's not set within the same period of Tolkien's life as Shadowlands was about C.S. Lewis's life, but it certainly is going to be in a kind of a similar vein. There's, you know, kind of following this fantasy author as he kind of deals with the romance and some of the stuff that inspired writing a famous series. It's similar, set in a different period, of course, within this particular author's life, but I'm excited. And Nicholas Hoult, good actor. He just recently killed it in The Favorite. I thought that he was excellent in that, and he's had some interesting roles all over the place throughout the years, so very, very excited for that. And then the last bit is that Nicolas Cage is going to be reteaming with the producers from Mandy to star in a movie about adapted from an H.P. Lovecraft horror story called Color Out of Space. And it's also going to be directed by a man named Richard Stanley, who has not directed anything in 20 years. And the last thing that he directed, I believe, was a movie called Hardware, which is a big cult favorite among a lot of people who seek out really kind of hard to find movies. It's, you know, a lot of his movies have gone off into the secondary market. So this is certainly interesting. It also has Jolie Richardson, Tommy Chong, yes, that Tommy Chong, and Koryanka Kilcher from The New World, the Terrence Malick movie. She played Pocahontas in that. And yeah, it's interesting, and it's coming from producer Elijah Wood is producing this one. He's of course good friends with Nicolas Cage, so of course he's doing that. And all right, so Color Out of Space is a story of cosmic terror about the Gardeners, a family who moves to a remote farmstead in rural New England to escape the hustle of the 21st century. They are busy adapting to their new life when a meteorite crashes into their front yard. The mysterious aerolite seems to melt into the earth, infecting both the land and the properties of space-time with a strange otherworldly color. To their horror, the Gardner family discover that this alien force is gradually mutating every life form that it touches, including them. And yeah, this premise is awesome. This is exactly my kind of really super dark, really super dark sci-fi horror kind of thing that, for instance, Mandy was a super out there, crazy, wacko movie that I liked quite a bit. And yeah. Oh, the other thing that Richard Stanley directed. So, do you remember hearing about the Island of Dr. Moreau?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one with Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer, and it's really it was a horrible, horrifying production that was that apparently like Val Kilmer was never the same or something like that. Marlon Brando is the one where he forced people to like speak the dialogue into his earpiece. He had Val Kilmer wear like the words on a card like taped to his head or something that he would read. And anyway, it was just a really like ill-fated production. Well, Stanley was involved with that movie for a brief period of time before John Frankenheimer took over. So he hasn't directed anything since that. And so it's kind of coming back from that. And so that's going to be interesting to see him kind of come back into the directing fold with something with Nicolas Cage, famously kind of short-tempered person. So yeah, I'm excited. That's my favorite bit of casting news is just Nicolas Cage paired with that director and those producers on a project like this. Give it to me now. So I can't wait for Color Out of Space. All right, what are your thoughts on all of these?
Yeah, I mean, the whole Matt Smith thing, I embarrassingly haven't seen that many things with him in it, and that includes The Crown and Doctor Who. I don't watch those shows, and I've only ever seen him in the Terminator movie, so I want to try to forget that. But, good for him. Nicholas Hoult, you're so right. After watching him in The Favorite, I'm like, I just want more Nicholas Hoult stuff. But he's always been good, and so he's great. But my favorite piece of news is exactly what yours is. I am one of those people that I just kind of love Nicolas Cage regardless of what he does, even if it is something like as bad as A Mom and Dad or something as surprisingly good as a Mandy. Like, he's just so all over the place, and that's what's kind of refreshing about him is that, oddly enough, he's never consistent, and that's what makes him fun to watch. So him re-teaming up with the person behind Mandy, like that's amazing. I mean, Mandy was just one of those things where going into it, like I knew, like, okay, is this gonna be like a mom and dad performance, or like what is it gonna be? It was a crazy performance, but the movie was actually good. So yeah, count me in.
All right, folks. So we are agreed on that. That's my favorite bit of news, probably in general, that we talked about, including the Fast and Furious thing. So, all right, now we're gonna move on to my Oscar beat. This is the last of the season. I guess until maybe we do like a sort of an autopsy on the actual broadcast, but we're going to talk briefly about some of the big surprises. Now, I've kind of divided these into two, the surprising inclusions and the surprising omissions. And this won't take long, guys. Don't worry. But I did want to talk about, too, the fact that generally these are kind of boring nominees. It's kind of an uneventful year in terms of looking at them as a whole. Really, there were only, of the feature films, only about 35 nominated, something like that, which is kind of depressing when you think about it. But there are some surprises in here, and I think that, you go from the minor ones, stuff like Christopher Robin getting into visual effects, or A Quiet Place getting into sound editing, things that I knew that were on the bubble, but I didn't think that they were going to actually happen. Um, and something like The Place Where Lost Things Go being nominated from Mary Poppins Returns rather than Triple Light Fantastic, which I thought would be more of the Oscar thing. Certainly glad to see that because The Place Where Lost Things Go is a much better song. Um, and then something like Isle of Dogs actually being nominated for Best Original Score. I didn't know if that would happen, but I'm glad to see that it did because great score. Um, and you look at something like The Ballad of Buster Scruggs showing up anywhere. First of all, because I didn't have it in any of my predictions anywhere, but it came out and it showed up in best what was it, costume design, which is very warranted. Best original song, which is awesome. The song that Tim Blake Nelson's character sings in his segment, and that's really cool. When a cowboy trades his spurs for wings. And also in Best Adapted Screenplay, because of course it adapted two of the short stories that were included from Jack London and Stuart Edward White, and then also some short stories that the Coens themselves wrote. So really good screenplay because it's so cohesive. All of the pieces fit. All of the stories seem to go together thematically. So really nice little mention there. And those are kind of some surprising inclusions. And of course, the big one was Marina de Tavira showing up in Best Supporting Actress for Roma, a performance that, it's interesting. It's really a good performance. I don't think that I was quite paying attention to it like apparently the Oscar voters were, because I was all about watching Yalitza Aparicio in the main role, and meanwhile there was this really good performance kind of playing out concurrently to hers, and so I probably should have thought that maybe somebody would give that some love this season, but it hasn't been shown any love that I know of, and so there was no precursors, nothing keeping it in my head. And thus, to have her nominated, it just goes to show sometimes the acting branch goes their own way. And, like any other branch here. So really cool inclusion there. And, some people were surprised, of course, by some of the other things. Never Look Away, the German film showing up in Best Cinematography, is surprising to a lot of people who aren't paying attention to the name attached. And the name attached is Caleb Deschanel, who's been nominated like 5 times before this. So, of course, they were probably paying attention to him. He's the father of Zoe and Emily Deschanel. And he shot, the last time he was nominated was for The Passion of the Christ, 15 years ago. So, certainly, or 14 years ago, I should say. So, certainly, he's a big name. The other ones were Willem Dafoe and At Eternity's Gate, which I foresaw that possibly happening. And it did, and then likewise the thing that I was telling you to take note of, Pavel Pawlikowski showing up in Best Director for Cold War. I knew that it would probably happen. So yeah, those were some of the surprising inclusions that I thought were rather delightful, and of course there were others that I wasn't so pleased by. For instance, Green Book being nominated for Best Editing. It's well edited, generally speaking. It moves along, but nominating that instead of First Man is absolute it's malarkey. It's ridiculousness. And the same thing with Bohemian Rhapsody for me. So I just, that brings us into the omissions. And that was one of the big ones for me. I thought that it was a done deal that First Man would get in, and it did not. It's ridiculous. And you look elsewhere, stuff like First Man missing in Best Cinematography. I thought that was kind of weird. I would have traded, I think, probably A Star Is Born for First Man. And then something like Won't You Be My Neighbor missing in Best Documentary Feature, which, it's interesting. A lot of people are up in arms about this. I know that of the 5 nominees, the most traditionally structured in terms of just, here's what happened is definitely RBG. I haven't seen it, but I know that it takes a similar structural approach as Won't You Be My Neighbor, and stuff like Life Itself from a few years ago, the one about Ebert, which also missed. And I think that what happens is the documentary branch, which is very, very, it's incredibly singular in its in terms of what it goes for. I think that what they did was they nominated one movie that is traditionally structured, because otherwise you have Free Solo, which is not, which is sort of um, kind of slice of lifey in terms of the fact that it's about this guy's, it tells his life story, but mostly in flashback, and it's mostly about how he wants to make this climb. Hale County This Morning, This Evening is an actual like experimental essay, which I've heard is really fascinating to watch. Minding the Gap takes place in two time periods, and it definitely doesn't take the traditional structure, because they play concurrently and they come together in a montage at the end. That doesn't happen a lot. And then Of Fathers and Sons, I know, is sort of similar in a way to Minding the Gap. So, in terms of how it structures what it's talking about, and I haven't seen that one either. But yeah, so that was certainly a big exclusion or omission, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to call it a snub because that's a snarky kind of smug term to me. But anyway, so there's that, and the big one was Bradley Cooper missing in Best Director, which a lot of people thought would happen. However, I will say, to add one more thing to the fun inclusion thing. All right, so we have Spike Lee, who is finally a nominee for Best Picture and Director with BlacKkKlansman. He's never been nominated for Best Director before. Do the Right Thing, or was it? Yeah, he wasn't. Was it? He was nominated for Best Director, not for Best Picture. That's what it was. The other way around. So that's kind of them making up for that. But then you also have somebody like Adam McKay. Really interesting choice there. But then you have these three others. Yorgos Lanthimos, who's a Greek director, he's working in the English language. But then you have Pavel Pawlikowski and Alfonso Cuarón being nominated in the same category. And both of their movies are nominated in Best Foreign Language Film. That is the first time that two directors of foreign language film nominees have been nominated in Best Director since 1976, which is pretty insane. Back when Lena Wertmuller was, I think, the first female director nominee for Seven Beauties, and I think it was Ingmar Bergman for something, or maybe it was Truffaut. I can't quite remember, but yeah. In any case, it's a rare thing to happen. And let's see, what else was there? There was one other thing that I wanted to talk about. No, never mind. I think I covered all of the stuff. Oh, the surprising omission to me in Best Visual Effects, because of the critical backing behind the movie, was Black Panther. But I'm glad that it missed because, we've talked about this before. There's some shoddy work in there. I have a feeling that in terms of the least likely winner in that category, I have a feeling it kind of flitted in and out in the voting and finally fell in. But that was probably Ready Player One. I read a big report on the visual effects branch being shown like, the various showcases for the movies. And I know that Ready Player One and Black Panther were the two that were kind of, people thought that they were fine presentations, but weren't super impressed. Those things can go pretty, unexpectedly. Apparently, when Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was still in the shortlist and was being shown, people left and went to the bathroom and didn't watch it. So that just, goes to show, that's what happens. It's interesting to follow that kind of thing. If you can find those types of news stories somewhere. But in any case, we also have to talk about the big elephant in the room, and I'm sorry to go here, but guys, Bohemian Rhapsody was nominated in Best Picture. And Chase is going to be like, no, Joel, stop talking about that. But, guys, directed by Bryan Singer, and they couldn't nominate If Beale Street Could Talk. They couldn't nominate Cold War. They couldn't nominate Shoplifters. They couldn't nominate Can You Ever Forgive Me. They had to go with this one. I just don't think that that's, Ballad of Buster Scruggs is in screenplay. They could have gone for that. That would have been an interesting choice. They had to go with the really, really, really typically structured biography that papers over a lot of the different aspects of the lives of these people, is outright, factually incorrect. It just doesn't look good, and I think that this is going to be something that the Academy has to learn from. Don't nominate a movie like this just because at the end of it just felt a bit bogus to me. I'll just say that, and I don't understand how it got to where it is. But anyway, maybe that's me not liking the movie talking, but I have a feeling that it's not. I think that there's something more going on there in terms of what this means for the Academy. I don't like how it looks. And anyway, so soapbox over. Chase covered this all pretty well on the show on Tuesday. So Chase, do you have anything to add?
No. I mean, with the whole Bohemian Rhapsody thing, I'm just tired of talking about it. I don't think it should ever be nominated for any awards, to be quite frank with you. And I said that on our show when we talked about the movie. Besides Rami, which you and I disagree with, besides that, I'm cool with it not being nominated for anything else, and that includes Best Picture. So that one is baffling, considering the fact, take the Bryan Singer thing out of it, but just given the fact that, Widows or Beale Street or First Man, all these movies were kind of shut out for that, and it's you could have swapped it out for something better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many other movies, guys. It's just, anyway. All right, so to move past all that, let's get into our review of The Kid Who Would Be King. All right, so this one comes from director Joe Cornish of Attack the Block. It's his first movie since then. Kind of sad because we could have been gifted with several of his movies, but of course, Attack the Block, I don't think that was a huge hit in the U.S., was it?
No.
Yeah, it wasn't. So, anyway.
It did give us John Boyega, though.
It did, yes. That is certainly a gift, because he went, I think that the first anything that was significant that he did was a bit of a starring role on 24, Live Another Day, which came a few years after the actual last season of the show. Yeah, they brought it back for a season, and he was in there. But
and of course,
anyway.
He's co-written Ant-Man and 1010, so he's been active. He just hasn't directed in a while.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was on John Boyega.
Sorry.
And then of course he moved to Star Wars. And yeah, Joe Cornish, I think. Yeah, that's right. He co-wrote Tintin, didn't he? I forgot about that. Yeah, that's cool. All right. So anyway, this one stars Louis Ashbourne Circus, son of Andy, as a kid named Alex, who finds out that he is descended from, or potentially descended from, King Arthur. When he's running away from some bullies, and he finds Excalibur, the sword, in a stone, and he pulls it out and goes on a big adventure that includes his best friend Betters, and those two bullies ultimately join the troop. Lance and Kay, if those names sound familiar, you're almost there. Meanwhile, a very young-looking Merlin, played in teenager form by a very funny Angus Emery, in a star-making role, I think, and in his more natural form by Patrick Stewart, informs him of his destiny, and he has to go off and fight Morgana, who was once Merlin's half-sister. She's after the sword for her own reasons, mainly reasons relating to all-encompassing power. But anyway, yes, this is an adventure. It's a fantasy adventure in the tradition of stuff like the Goonies and, all that stuff in the 90s that you either loved when you were a kid and don't feel so good about now, or still love right now because it's nostalgic. This is very much in the tradition of that. So I'll get to my thoughts in a little bit. Chase, what did you think of The Kid Who Would Be King?
Right. So, when we saw the trailers a while back, I was like, okay, cool. It's a PG family film. It's going to cater to kids rather than adults. And, usually with movies like this, a director could swing in either way. They can make the movie appeal to kids but treat them like babies, or appeal to kids and treat them more like adults, and really kind of craft a movie that can be frightening, can be exciting, and still appeal to a kid demographic, and really make it feel like they are not being talked down to and being actually treated like young adults. So I watched the movie, and I'm happy to report that I like it. And I am one of these people, because Joel and I are the same age, and we grew up in the same time period, so we are very well aware of like cheesy 90s movies, to where if we look back on them today, like critically from from today's standpoint, we probably would say they're bad movies. But there's something about those movies that we grew up with as kids that we can still resonate with. And I'll guarantee you, if Joel and I have little hellions running around and we introduce them to movies we grew up with, we would show them those cheesy and probably arguably bad movies. This movie is the same way. I will guarantee you, any kid that saw this in the theater with me, they're going to grow up going, yeah, that Kid Who Would Be King, not the best movie in the world, but man, I really enjoyed watching it. And it kind of had that same appeal like when Joel and I grew up with, speaking of, Sword in the Stone type of movies, like the Kid in King Arthur's Court. It was one of those kind of like fantasy kind of family films where it's set in modern day, but then, Fish Out of Water propels Tom and Ian Nicholas to the medieval times. It's just when you watch it as a kid, like you just feel like you're a part of this adventure, and you feel like you're a part of this kind of magical event that you're watching. And so from a kid's point of view, I think they're going to love this movie. From someone that's almost 30, I still liked it, because I think what I was talking about earlier with treating kids like they're young adults, I think that's what Cornish did. He takes the whole Sword in the Stone mythology, applies it to modern times. You have kids that go to school, and we even like touch upon themes with like bullying and stuff, and really just kind of inject this like fantasy spin on it. And I thought he did a pretty good job. I thought the world building of blending the two was pretty good. I thought the special effects, well, a little iffy sometimes. I think for the budget that they were given, I still found a lot of interesting detail that was put upon that, with either it be the dead people riding the horses, or Rebecca Ferguson's form at the very end. There was some creativity there, and I really appreciate the medieval kind of fantasy vision that Cornish had. And like I said, not low-browing jokes, just really just crafting a movie that doesn't treat kids like they're dumb. And speaking of the kids in the movie, I think all of them did a fantastic job. Joel is absolutely correct. He was a tad annoying at the beginning, but I slowly started to fall more in love with him, the young Merlin, because he was so definitely like playing up that fish out of water joke, and it never really got old, because he was so serious and so stubborn, and like everyone's like, who are you? Like, what are you doing? And that was really nice. And then Louis Ashbourne Circus. That kid is just as good as his dad. Like, there were several scenes in the movie where, yes, he plays that kind of like nerdy kid who gets bullied at the beginning, but he slowly starts to become that leader that he was destined to be. But then there was also some scenes with his mom that were really touching, or there was a scene with his aunt that was kind of touching. And it's a story about a kid that has to deal with these real life consequences so young, that it kind of propels him to grow up faster than he intended to, and so he's dealing with all of that while fighting off this this monster because he is the chosen one. And I thought he was a great anchor for this movie. And then of course everyone else, because him and Merlin were my favorites, and then everyone else was definitely great. And then the bullies were really well realized too. Even when they made simple mistakes, like letting the bullies join the group, they learn from their mistakes, and then of course, you know, they kind of turn around and fix it towards the end. So I don't know, just its screenwriting approach to me had the consequences, had the correct character growth, had weight to it. It wasn't vapid characters. It was, you know, fully realized kids. And once again, I think Cornish did a great job with the story. Dialogue and the humor could have been a little hokey sometimes, but I can excuse that. The overall bit of the movie, and then the visual tone and look to it, I thought Cornish did a good job. Moving on to the performances, I already touched upon Serkis and the kid that played Merlin. I got to touch upon Rebecca Ferguson and Patrick Stewart. To be honest with you, they didn't need to be in this movie. You could have had anyone else in the role. Patrick Stewart was in there 3 times, and he's great, but I don't know, he just felt like a waste. And so did Rebecca Ferguson. I did not like her in her human form. Her wardrobe looked like she was a cast member at a theme park ride. It was not good. But you know, her final form, while it looked sometimes bad with the visual effects, I still think the overall detail of how her character looked was enough to like make me go, I can't believe this is PG. This is great. Like, these kids are like probably legit being terrified from her face, which is great because once again, treating them like they're young adults and not babies. So yeah, were they having fun in their roles? Sure, but I honestly think you could have swapped them out for anybody else. And I think that's about it, because I touched upon, you know, the visual look and the directing and the writing and the acting. I think that's where this movie kind of shines. You know, I think and also just to kind of wrap it up, I think for a 2-hour-long movie, pretty much, it actually moves pretty swiftly. I was like, oh no, these kids are going to get bored in this audience. I was a little worried that they would get antsy and start moving around, but everyone was paying attention, and I was actually along for this ride to where I didn't even realize it was 2 hours until after the movie. So that's the sign of a well-edited film. So my overall thoughts, it's a good movie. I like it. It's no masterpiece, but you know what? I think when kids discover this movie, I think they're really going to enjoy it, and it's going to hold a place in their heart for when they get older and they look back on movies that they watched as kids, and they're going to be like, oh, wow, yeah, you know, I really enjoyed it as a kid. It's like, you know, with, you know, the movies that come out when Joel and I was a kid, like Flubber and stuff. Like, I'm sure if we looked at it through today's eyes, there's many problems with it. But you know what? As kids, we loved it. It was just fun. And I do like the kind of modern take that Cornish had. So overall, I'm going to give this movie a solid B. I think for what it was going for in terms of the family film genre, I think it exceeds it, and it's definitely better than some of the animated movies that come out nowadays. So I want Hollywood to take more risk on movies like this and make PG family films, live action, a little bit more edgy and stuff. I like that genre or that subgenre. And so for what it was trying to accomplish, it did a pretty good job. So a B for me. Joel, I know, just seeing your interactions on Facebook and stuff, I think you and I pretty much agree, right?
Yeah, I like this as well. I think that one thing that you didn't touch on, and it was something that surprised me about this movie, was not only that it had a modern take, but that it was self-aware to some degree,
right,
to a degree that I didn't think that was annoying. So, for instance, this is not just any old universe. This is genuinely, like, Harry Potter exists as something that's a pop culture phenomenon. Star Wars exists as something that's a pop culture phenomenon, and we get that and we see it in the trailer, but it's a really cool moment here where he realizes he has a magical destiny. He realizes that because of the facts of his life, for instance, the fact that he doesn't know his dad, that he kind of reflects Luke Skywalker and Harry Potter. And so now we have this kid who's kind of smart enough to realize what's going to be asked of him. Um, and so, yeah, that's why I like this. We've talked about this before. I don't, I'm not trying to put you in the spotlight or call you out on the show um, to any degree, but we've talked about the definition of the word cheesy before, and I think that you tend to use it for stuff that's earnest. Cheesy is incredibly melodramatic, and that's not what this movie is. Um, Cheesy is basically it's kind of, even if you're using it positively like you are here, it's kind of still a put down. I think that what you're trying to say though is right. Is that this movie is incredibly earnest in terms of the fact that it's not treating its audience like an idiot or like a bunch of idiots. And so what it does is it takes its mythology relatively seriously, but it doesn't take itself as a piece of storytelling too seriously.
Right. Okay. So
Uh,
I guess like just hearing you talk about it, that's a better way to describe it. So yeah, that
yeah,
whatever I was trying to get across, because guys, I'm not good with my words. Like I got a C minus in English in high school throughout most of my life. So whatever Joel just said is exactly what I was trying to convey.
yeah, it's good and it's fun. I don't think, obviously it's not like something that's going to change lives, but it's really really interesting. That basically what we have here is kind of like what you're saying. It's an answer to these kid in King Arthur's court and all of that. These very just unpretentious, completely, the plotting, the sense of economy in the storytelling in this movie is surprising because it doesn't distract itself with a bunch of other side quests. It doesn't have too many subplots. And the only subplot that's really going on is him, or I guess it's not really a subplot, it's the main plot, but they treat it as sort of a side thing. It's sort of what the whole story as a whole represents. But um, yeah, it's interesting. The thing with his dad that's going on, I thought was really well handled, and you have the mom character here is a really touching character who um, uh, I think that they treat just more than just as a worried mom. There's more going on there than just her worry as a mom. There's things that we learn as it goes along that are genuinely surprising. I didn't see certain avenues coming, particularly as we get to the end of that thread. And of course, it all ends in a big light and sound show with a bunch of action, and that's fairly routine. The points of the different like elements, the fantastical elements are really fun to watch. But they're routine. They're what you expect, and I think that what I didn't expect was that it was not going to treat me like I'm some Dumbo, as an audience member. Like it's not trying to explain or at least over explain everything. That's a problem that I have, for instance, with the Patrick Stewart version of that character is that he literally just shows up to explain stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when the movie falls into that. But it doesn't fall into that very much. As you said, he's in there only 3 times. And that's really the only time that the movie does that. Where it over explains everything. It's mostly about these kids trying to logistically just come up with different methods of surviving and overtaking this threat. And so the movie concerns itself with the point by point plan, um, and the fun that these kids are clearly having playing these roles comes across. And I thought that the bullies were kind of extraneous. They narratively kind of justify themselves by the end, but I don't know if the movie needs those characters. I think it could have survived without those two. Just having, or maybe make them background roles in some way. I don't think that they needed to be so involved in the action, at least for the point that the movie was trying to make. Anyway, but yeah, it's good. It's a fun sort of little rowdy adventure, and I thought that it was quite clever and it surprised me. So yeah, I think that we're on the same boat in the same boat here. It's a B for me, and I quite liked it. So yeah, surprising little movie. It's one that I wouldn't mind watching again. You know, I'm not running to go see it again. I'm just saying that if given the option to watch it again, I'd say yeah, sure, because it's fun and it's a good way to spend 2 hours. And um, by the way, you're right. It does not feel 2 hours long. It didn't feel like it was that long. It is that long, but it moves by pretty quickly.
It's a brisk movie because of what you said in terms of it doesn't have all these subplots that it's juggling. It's literally a straightforward plot. Alex does diverge a little bit to find out some of his family history, but for the most part, it's a straightforward story, and that's why it was enjoyable and it didn't feel slow because nothing was bogging it down.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Again, I go back to just the economy of storytelling. The fact that they're so intent upon telling this particular story and not going off on some random tangents. And yeah, I mean, it felt confident. And to briefly touch upon the performances, I don't think that most of them are really worth talking about. But just even if they're good, it's just like whatever. But the movie belongs to Louis Ashbourne Circus, who I think kind of reminded me of Daniel Radcliffe in the first Harry Potter in a certain way. I think maybe he's a little more natural than Radcliffe was in that first movie. And maybe even more so Georgie Henley in the first Chronicles of Narnia, who played Lucy. Certainly the lead of the kids in that movie, and there's elements of this kind of initially reacting to stuff and then kind of cottoning on to just enough to be able to keep up with the action as it goes along. It works really well, and he's terrific. I think that he's a very natural star, and it's
he definitely has a future.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that he should be able to, kind of scrape that future away from his dad.
Right.
I think that they'll be able to stand apart, and yeah, it's good. So B from both of us, and it's now time to move on to my extra review. I know that Chase is very excited about this. All right, guys. So
yeah, please let our listeners know that, because we rarely do this, but you're going to dive into spoilers because of how crazy it is.
Yes. Okay. So, oh my gosh. All right, guys, I'm reviewing Serenity. This is the new movie from director Stephen Knight of Locke. That's the Tom Hardy in a car movie to kind of snarkily reduce it, but really good movie, and this is not one. All right, so here's how this is going to work. I am going to do sort of similar to what we did on our Avengers Infinity War review. I'm going to talk about the aspects that I can safely talk about to people who are wanting to see this based on the star power. Of course, it stars Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Diane Lane, Jason Clarke, Jaimin Hunsu, Jeremy Strong. It's a good cast. So people who are wanting to see that, you can safely listen for a little bit. What I'm going to do is at a certain point, I'm going to give you 7 seconds of silence. Chase and I will. Chase, I'm sure will butt in with like a random noise. It's just throw me off. I don't know, but we're going to try to give you 7 seconds of silence at some point, and then you can pause your devices, close your windows, whatever you need to do to turn away so that you can see the movie, and then maybe come back to it to try to make sense of what you saw and listen to my rant that's coming. So first, though, I'm going to cover the points of this movie that I can safely talk about, and those are that we are introduced to a fishing boat captain named Baker Dill, played by Matthew McConaughey. He is obsessed with finding and capturing a certain fish off the coast of this island that he has inhabited for several years. This fish is his livelihood. He ignores all other things. He any other kind of all of the outside world is completely unknown and a stranger to him because of how he just looks for this fish. He goes out every day and he stays out every day on the water on his boat with his first mate, played by Jamin Honsu. And yeah, so that's the setup of the character, is that he's kind of unstably obsessed with this fish, right? Okay, so now it's kind of a struggle to get into spoiler territory here, but I will just give very, very, very vague details. And then in the spoiler section, I will give all of everything away. So uh, basically, he is readily involved with a woman who he's kind of a hooker in the relationship. This woman, played by Diane Lane, he's strapped for money relatively often, and whenever they sleep together, she pays him, and he's able to make ends meet by doing that. And so it's an interesting codependent relationship that the movie doesn't actually like explore in any way because of the introduction of a character named Karen, played by Anne Hathaway. She has re-entered Baker's life after several years away, and weirdly seems to be calling him John. Nobody really understands why that is. It seems that they knew each other in a previous life, and all that anybody really knows is that he was once in the Iraq War, and it messed him up, and now he's on this island alone looking for this fish. Meanwhile, the Hathaway character hires him to kill her new husband, played by Jason Clarke, by pushing him off his boat and making it seem like an accident. Basically, he's bringing him out for a trip, and the Hathaway character has paid him $10,000 to make it look like it's this big fishing trip, and the Clarke character is obsessed in similar ways with fishing. So, that's sort of the plan, that she wants him to push him out into the sharks, and he'll die, and she'll pay him $10 million in cash if he does this job. All right, so it's really hard to talk about the qualities of the movie without talking about the main big twist, but I'm going to get into that now. All right, so this story, as it's set up, is, to me at least, pretty kind of melodramatic. The performances are strange. The McConaughey kind of attacks every single line of dialogue as if he's in a David Mamet play, and you can feel that Knight's trying to go for something Mamet-like, in terms of the way that words don't come out of mouths in an expected order. Sometimes they will use it's a very Mamet-like way of speaking, which is hard to describe to people who aren't immediately familiar with Mamet's type of dialogue, and films like House of Games or the one that he wrote, Wag the Dog. But it's a very specific, very idiosyncratic way of speaking that doesn't remind of anybody else who writes dialogue. It's not like Tarantino, for instance. It's not as filled with pop culture references, but it's also not like Sorkin, where it's incredibly formal and detailed. It's more in the way people say it and the way the words are structured. That's what this movie's going for, and it fails tremendously because the dialogue is regularly awful. It's always telling us exactly what's happening with each of the characters and what's happening in their head, and it's just telling us all of that, right? So it's incredibly awkwardly written and performed by McConaughey, and definitely Hathaway, who plays her role all wrong. In fact, the only actor who really kind of works is Jason Clarke when he comes in, because he's playing the character exactly as in the early 90s Joe Pesci might have if this movie had been made then. And it's a very Pesci-like character. He's incredibly vulgar. So yes, this is a movie with a strong amount of language, and it's mostly because of the Clark character, and because of the way that he kind of delivers it with this northeastern accent that, works because he's such a scumbag. The character is such a scumbag. He regularly beats his wife and son, and so he's a drunk, abusive, total scumbag, and that's the kind of characters that Pesci regularly played in his R-rated movies that he did. And Clark kind of delivers the dialogue in those ways, and it's impressive. And it's really the only actor who works here. Diane Lane isn't given anything to do. Djimon Hounsou just kind of stands in the background a lot, looking suspicious. And yeah, so it's just a lot of really like overheated and then reheated melodrama that, it until the point at which everything shifts, it's really not interesting. It's not an interesting setup, and kind of going into some of the filmmaking aspects, it looks fine in terms of the cinematography. It definitely takes advantage of this kind of beachside location that wherever they shot this sort of the beachside photography is very impressive, and it successfully builds the world in that way. But all right, so guys, if this didn't kind of turn you away from seeing the movie, and you are still interested in seeing this movie, and you don't want to have anything ruined for you, we're about to give you 7 seconds of silence. If you don't care, or if you've already read the twist, or anything like that, then keep listening. But if you are not one of those people, if you're somebody who wants to see this movie, turn this episode off right now. I'm about to give away everything. And so I'm going to go to where my clock is visible, and I'm going to give our listeners 7 seconds of silence. Chase, don't make any noises. I know how you love to make noises just randomly. Starting here in about 10 seconds, I'm going to give people 7 seconds of silence. And I've warned you guys, so turn away starting now. All right, so it's been 7 seconds. People who don't want to know the secrets have turned away, I hope. And the people who don't care or want to hear by now what the twist is, I hope you're still listening. All right, folks. So, before I actually talk about the twist, I want to talk about the history of twists in cinema. Because I have a feeling that people are going to listen to this twist and realize, oh wow, so Stephen Knight was trying to pull kind of an M. Night Shyamalan on you, or something on the degree of a film like Fight Club, or what have you, or The Usual Suspects. Actually, The Usual Suspects might be a more apt, an apt comparison, because that's another twist that I don't think works in the slightest, at least when it finally comes. But anyway, something along those lines. I have a feeling that in the future, people of the future are going to ask each other, where were you when you learned the twist of Serenity? Because that is how incredible this is. All right. So the reason that I bring up other twists is because I think that if you watch films from Shyamalan, even if they're lunatic twists, ludicrous ones, you can always thread back through the plot and connect what you've learned to the details of the storytelling before that. It always seems to fit, even if it's completely idiotic like The Happening, or if it's airtight like The Sixth Sense. You can always just go back through and pick out little things that hint at this. And here, I suppose you could go with the opening shot, but it still quite doesn't quite prepare you for what's about to happen, because about 45 minutes from the end is when this movie gives up the game and tells us everything that's going on. And here it is. So, one detail that I mentioned that I'm now going to provide important context for is that the Jason Clarke and Anne Hathaway characters have a son. What I did not mention, and this is a specific reason, is the fact that, in fact, that son is the son of the McConaughey and Hathaway characters. He ran off and went into the war. She got pregnant and never told him, and he found out later on. But all right, what we learn is that everybody we've met, from the McConaughey character to the Hathaway character to the Jason Clarke character to the Jeremy Strong character, who's this weird, like, very proper businessman who keeps trying to catch the McConaughey character to tell him something important, and that ends up being this bit of plotting. To the Jaimin Hansu character, to the inhabitants of the island, to the island itself, is all fake. It's all a video game, and all of the characters that we have been following are avatars in this video game, created by the son to get away from his abusive father and figure out a way to kill him. So what we've been following is the story within the video game. And meanwhile, the flashes that we get of the sun from the back of his head are the real world, where we can hear outside of his room arguments going on with his new dad and his old mom. And then by the end, he's figured out both a way to kill him within this video game and also a way to kill him in real life, which he does in the last few scenes of the movie. Then we learn that he's been sent off for a brief time to a detention facility, but he's returned to his mother, and he's rewritten the game so that his father, or his fake father, this avatar within his video game, that he's written himself into the game, and now he can visit his father within this false universe. Why? Because his father is actually dead. When he went off to Iraq, he was killed in a mission and never came home. So the happy ending, yes, a happy ending that this movie comes up with, is the fact that now this boy who doesn't exist doesn't actually exist within the video game, can visit his dead father, who is not real and is entirely within his control, in the video game he created. Guys, if this movie was a person, it would think that AI, artificial intelligence, had a happy ending. Because this thing is like the Truman Show gone completely demented. And also, the sad fact of the matter is that this twist does not make sense given what we learn. And the reason is because of two things that Knight does. One, he has this character create a really stupid video game which makes no sense and has stupid rules and a bogus motivation and a kind of an idiotic motive, like that you're trying to get this fish, and you also can kill a person within the video game. But it also kind of reflects poorly upon this kid's imagination, because, again, even the Diane Lane character, who sleeps with and pays the Matthew McConaughey character, and the Anne Hathaway character, who ends up being this person who is attracted or is trying to keep the Jason Clarke character happy by treating him as if he's one of these weird kinky kind of strangely sexual people who has daddy issues. Uh, Basically, this kid has created female characters who are awful, awful female characters, and also he's given us this main character in McConaughey's Baker, or John, or whatever you want to call him. He calls him Baker for the whole movie. Um, he he's a video game character who slowly realizes that he is one, which is not possible unless you've somehow accidentally figured out artificial intelligence. So it doesn't even make sense when you thread it back through the movie, because it's concealed so much, and all of the stuff that it's concealed is rubbish. And yeah, so that's the secret of this movie, folks, that everything that you watch is fake. Everything that you watch is already fake, of course, but even within the storytelling in the movie, it's all false drama, and it absolutely means nothing because it's within the control of a character. And what we've been watching is something that's interactive with a character that we don't meet until at all. Actually, we never see the kid speak. We just see shots of him, and the emotion of the story follows this video game avatar realizing that it's a video game avatar, and it can't do anything about that because it's not a real person, and it's programmed. So anything that happens with this character is as a result of programming, but for a really insidious reason outside of the confines of the video game. So yeah, this is one that people are going to be talking about for years on end. It's in terms of just incredible twists that ruin everything. There's not much to ruin here, of course, because the setup is so poor, but when it gets there, I slapped a hand to my forehead, and I don't say that I slap a hand to my forehead unless I do it. I did it this time because I could not believe what I was watching. It's that ridiculous. So yeah, this thing is just a house of cards. Basically, it's this thing that you accidentally knock it and it falls down, and it's a poorly constructed kind of it's just a poorly constructed house of cards that doesn't make any sense whenever you get there, and it's also got this unearned sentimentality that comes across as kind of cynical. Rather, whether or not it was intentional or not, I don't know, but it just is a big fat. It's not a goose egg. I'm not giving it an F because I think that there's a sort of a douche chill quality to this that makes it at least enjoyable to watch. All of this stuff unfold when it gets there. So I can't really go lower than a D on this. That's what I'm giving it. I wouldn't be surprised if people give this an F. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But there's such an unintentional entertainment value and sort of a Schadenfreude kind of element to watching this all play out that I can't go lower than a D. Mainly because laughably awful movies are never worthy of the F grade. That's not what an F is for. An F is for irredeemability. I don't think that there's that stuff about this is irredeemable. Certainly, if you were to make a story about the kid outside of the context of his video game, there might be something there that adds a little bit to the movie. So, of course, there's potential here for whatever it's trying to go for thematically, but it's really confused as is, and it's really baffling, particularly as you come to reach this twist. So in any case, yeah, it's bad, and I just it's bad. It's bad stuff. So in any case, a D for Serenity. And Chase, have I kind of convinced you to see it?
I kind of want to watch it now. Yeah, you know what's really great about bad movies is that you kind of want to watch them just to see how bad it is. And it's one of those things to where, like, even if you, like, back in the day, like when we saw like The Snowman, that was a bad movie. But like, if we didn't see it, but we heard all that horrible stuff about it, you and I would have probably watched it eventually. And that's kind of the feeling I'm getting here. So yeah, I kind of want to watch it now.
Well, let me be one to wish you luck live on the air. I guess not live on the air, but whatever. We're just going with that anyway. Uh, yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's astonishing to watch it unfold. I mean, it reveals it through dialogue, which is the laziest way to do that. So it's very expository. There's a ton of exposition here. It's almost nonstop exposition actually, but it's fascinating, man. It's really going to be one that people kind of mull over. Now, there's really not much to mull over thematically here. Whatever it's trying to say is pretty terrible about humanity, I think. But yeah, it's certainly fascinating to watch the things that it's trying to conceal just kind of come to light. It's a weird one, man, and it's a bad movie. So certainly one that's going to be in contention for my top 10 worst. We'll see. I mean, I obviously see a lot of movies in the year, so I don't know if it's quite going to make it. I would honestly say of recent releases, particularly in January 2019, I think that they would get the same rating, but Replicas, the new Keanu Reeves movies, maybe slightly worse than this, because there isn't as much going for it. But whatever the case, they're both really awful, and they certainly are the bad January movies of the year. So yeah, I just, man, it's bad. All right, folks. So I gave Serenity a D, and The Kid Who Would Be King got a B from both of us. Let us know what you thought of them. Go into the, obviously add spoiler alerts, but go into the spoilers about Serenity if you saw it. If you haven't seen it and you are now curious because of what I told you, let us know that. If you stayed listening and wanted to see it, then I'm sorry. So, all right. Next week we are going to be reviewing Miss Bala. I think that Chase told you that earlier in the show, but that's going to be our review. And also, we're bringing back our special segment on the top 5 films of a year in this decade. We're going to be talking about the top 5 films of 2015. So that's on next week's slate. Chase, any last words?
I am really excited about next Sunday because that is pretty much death day for Joel because he has to escape the internet while all these trailers drop during the Super Bowl, and I'm gonna be really excited to see him squirm and not try to go on Twitter or Facebook.
It's interesting because there's been a lot of these trailers coming out of in the last day or so since after I compiled notes and after you compiled trailers to talk about that have been dropping from Sundance, and they're movies that I'm interested in, but I haven't watched the trailers, and I gotta say, I'm fine with it. It's interesting. I know that there's going to be trailers that are struggles, Star Wars for one, but unless I decide to watch that, but for the most part, it's just like, you know what, I'm fine with it. I think that I'm good. I haven't had that sense of like what I thought I was going to have, where it's like withdrawal from some sort of trailer addiction or something. I'm not having that, and I am surprised just because I watched trailers for so long, and I thought that I would have more of a reaction to it, but I've gotten into a pattern where I just see that a trailer has dropped. I realize, oh, I'm probably going to hear about that from Chase. And I'm fine with that. And then whenever I go to a movie, I usually have at least a little bit of a literal window, to see through the door. And, I can't really hear the stuff that's going on, but I can see that it's a trailer. And then I just make sure that I pay attention, because at the AMC, the little theater thing that says, don't text or whatever comes after the trailers and before the movie, and it's way louder than any of the trailers. So I can always hear the music come up, and I'm fine with that. And I just walk in, take my seat, and I'm
that
good.
Is such a lie. So here's what's going to happen next week. Like, do you guys remember the opening scene in Twister when they're like really trying to hold the like shelter door as tight as they can, and the tornado is just like ramming on the door and just like it's just shaking violently. So the tornado is the swirl of trailers that's coming Joel's way, and Joel is the husband trying to lock the door so the tornado doesn't get his family. Like, that's exactly what he's doing. So it's a complete lie. He might be casual about it, but next Sunday is going to be awful for him because there's going to be so many people talking about the trailer spots. But no, it's
Bill Paxton. I'm Bill Paxton.
Right. So so that will be next week is Ms. Bala, the American remake. But I'm excited because I like me some Gina Rodriguez, so why not? But that will be next week. But Joel, where can the people find you online?
You can find my writing at Joel on Film. By the time a lot of people are listening to this, I should have new reviews up. Of course, I was kind of pressed for time this weekend. I haven't written my 2 reviews for the weekend, The Kid Who Would Be King and Serenity, but I'm off to do that here in a little bit. But I should have those up, and also I caught up with Goosebumps 2 and The Old Man of the Gun recently at home. So I've got those reviews written, and all of that's coming. Then you have my Twitter, which is Real Joel Copling. I ramble endlessly on that. You got my Letterboxd page where I include, kind of pimp out my website. You can find some of my writing at DallasMovieScreenings.com. I haven't had anything in a while, although I might have something in March coming up. We'll see. And then let's see, what else? Is that it? That's pretty much it. That's where you can find me online, other than this podcast.
Right, and if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, it's at RealChaseLee, and of course, follow this podcast around, whether it's on CastBox, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, wherever. Please spread it around and let people know this is your favorite movie podcast to listen to. I am Chase, that is Joel over there, and tune in next week for episode 265, where we talk about Ms. Bala, but this has been episode 264. You guys are awesome. Peace out, everybody.
Bye.